In your instructor time, instructor duties, coincidentally, we were actually there at the same time, which I know you were in second phase.
Yep.
I was a brown shirt rollback coordinator in PTRR, so we didn't really work together then. But
we were over at the pool deck all the time, though.
Yeah, we were there at the same time. So, for me, I'm curious to get your take. I mean, for me, that was a pretty unique and fascinating time. In a good way, in seeing behind the curtain of, most team guys just have the experience of going through it, and there's not a huge percentage of us that have, I would say, the honor and pleasure of actually being ones facilitating that selection process. But to me, like, I will always be really proud of that experience, and what I found really fascinating was the psychology behind why guys quit, and watching that process of going from inspired the same way you and I were, and then making that crippling and life-altering decision in the most negative fucking way possible to say, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore, and watching like that magnitude of a decision take place during stressful times right in front of your face was fascinating. What was your experience, I guess, as an instructor in terms of that, or in general?
I think that my time there, I spent 18 months there. It could possibly be the most rewarding tour of my career.
Yeah.
If you look at it for what it is, you have the ability to be wildly impactful on the community moving forward. Because I tried to think of it from the eyes of my 18-year-old self, looking at the instructors wearing the green shorts and the blue shirt and the ridiculously gay starched hat.
The 8-point.
Yeah, and I don't mean that in the old English definition of happy. I'm freaking terrified of those guys. Jump, hey, no problem, how high? Run, how fast, how far?
Yeah.
I remember what that felt like. And I remember when I encountered my first BUD/S instructor, in the back of my head, I had this thought of, I think this dude's a piece of shit. And it stuck with me. And then later on in my career, I ended up serving with that person. And that initial thought, it was reinforced.
No shit.
And it was found to be true. And I didn't ever want to be that guy. And it's your chance to be a representative of the community that these guys are volunteering in a time of war, mind you, post 9/11 now. I don't think you and I necessarily knew what we were getting into to a degree.
For
I had
sure.
an idea,
Yeah.
but my career ended up being more than I ever thought it could be, in going in directions that I never thought it could go. And we volunteered in peacetime.
Yeah.
There's something to be said for people who put their life on hold and volunteer in a time of war.
Vastly different.
Yeah, vastly different. And I was there from 2006 to late 2006 to October 1st of 2008. There was some kinetic activity taking place. People were dying a lot. But I loved it. I loved the psychology aspect as well, too. I loved talking with people who quit. And I would love to be able to say that I was doing like some type of sociology experiment.
Yeah.
But truthfully, I was trying to weaponize their reasoning on other students, because I wanted to make as many of them quit as possible, because I don't want them to die.
Yeah.
And
you don't want your brothers to die.
You only want to get the right people to make it through. And once I realized that the common theme existed between most of them that quit, they just got overwhelmed in a moment of being low.
Yeah.
Like, all right, well, I have these elements that I can use: water, temperature, sleep. I can push you low.
Yeah.
And then, maybe I just need to try to overwhelm you. And I would start with the first student in line, and if he ignored me, I'm like, fuck you. I just go to the next student in line.
Maybe you're weaker.
But it's funny, but you can see the seeds of doubt sprouting.
Oh, yeah.
And that was my simple recipe for getting students to quit, is I would try to make them think about their world in a big perspective. Like, can you really be this cold for 180 days? You really think you can tolerate me in Hell Week for the next 7 days? Because every minute of every shift, I'm going to be up your ass.
Yeah.
And of course, I started with the officers.
Yeah.
Why? Because fuck them.
Yeah.
Even though I was an officer at the end of my career.
Yeah.
That was a fake officer, though.
Limited duty. Heavy on the
limited, light on the duty. No, but it's a rock, paper, rank organization.
Yeah.
If you're going to go into the military as an officer, you better be damn well ready to lead, and you better not lead by pointing at your collar device, because I'm going to knock it off your collar as I'm banging your teeth down your throat.
Yeah.
So I would start with them, and I would work my way down. But I took the job very seriously, and it was my personal perspective. I taught second phase, which is diving. We taught open circuit, which means bubbles escape; closed circuit, which means they don't. And there's a test called pool comp that I think was 4 weeks into it. And if you pass pool comp,
It's pretty much
you got like high 90th percentile. You could be stupid and the fastest way out of the SEAL teams is probably an alcohol-related incident.
Yeah.
So you could do that
or
at
safety violation.
Or safety violation. Yeah. Feel free to do both of those at any time. Yeah. You're going to get ejected faster than a Elon Musk rocket launching a car into space, right? But absent that, if you pass pool comp, you're probably going to be in. Yeah. And one thing that I really tried to do was, one, I always treated the students fair and equitably. Pre-pool comp, even like when I worked Hell Week shifts, because all the instructors have to. I never yelled, not even a single time when I was at Buds. I never raised my voice. And I actually think that freaked him out more.
Psychologically, that has such. I mean, you see like the Marine DI in contrast to the SEAL instructor, and it's polar fucking opposite. And for sure, like a raised voice. I mean, the same with parenting. It's a lot with dogs. Actually, is it becomes white noise.
The quieter you talk, the harder they have to listen.
Yeah. Well, and the harder it is not to listen.
Yeah.
To me, like the harder it is to block that out. If they're having a almost monotone, like spooky fucking narrative, or narrators type of voice, and right there in your fucking ear, like you can't block that out as well, But
and again, I tried to remember that I'm looking at students, but I'm also looking at peers at some point, especially past pool comp, and they may not end up being my peers, but they're going to end up being peers of people that I know. Yeah. And again, I remember being a Buds instructor and having that asshole, or a Buds student, and having that asshole instructor and just logging it in the back of my head. Like, I'm going to see you one day at a bar. Yeah. And you're going to be loaded. And I am going to cold cock you so hard in the side of the ear. And it just, like you can plant seeds as an instructor that there will be resentment harbored for the rest of their life towards you. And there's no reason to do it. You're not a better instructor if you do that. And I'm glad I took it as seriously as I did. I ended up doing a lot of like every Friday they were supposed to, or they weren't supposed to, the students did, they would sit down and they would do core value talks for like an hour. It's just Q&A. Yeah. And most of the time it would be a chief petty officer or above who would conduct those. And I ended up doing most of them because I would just sit there and I would just talk with them and I would answer questions and I would answer them completely honestly about SEAL teams. They would ask about combat. They would ask about the impact of SEAL teams on married life, on how it, and how all of those things exist and the push and the pull. And I'm glad that I took it as seriously as I did, because when I went to Team 3 in my next duty station, I ended up working with like 30 of those kids, which is what they were. They were kids. Yeah. And I had a great relationship with all of them. I'm sure there's some out there that hate my guts, and you know what? That's the way the cookie crumbles. Nobody's perfect, and I really don't care. If everybody loved me, I was actually doing my job wrong. Yeah. I don't want anybody to love me. Actually, I just want them to be good SEALs.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think those are very poignant, experiences that you can glean a lot of, life lessons from that. Really, no matter where you're at, is taking that same attitude. I mean, I know for a lot of times, depending on where you're at in life, it can be easy to not take something seriously or not find the value in doing something. And obviously, at a command such as that, it's almost impossible not to draw some of those principles from. But to me, taking that attitude into no matter what the fuck you're doing, I don't care if you're making French fries at Burger King, like having a similar mentality, I think, is just a good way to make the world a fucking better place. But that's good shit. I love hearing about it. So moving on, you went back to the teams after that, got the what would we in the Navy call the Mustang, route or commission in terms of being a prior enlisted and then getting a commission. If you can,
I think of it as being an unbridled stallion. But
sure, of course you do. That's fucking convenient.
It's an unbridled stallion that must run free. Yeah, I don't know where the term Mustang comes from, but it's a prior enlisted that becomes an officer.
Yeah. So what was the deal with that, basically? I mean,
so I got shot in the middle of deployment, and that deployment was my LPO tour.
No shit.
And the Navy, in their infinite wisdom, considered my LPO tour to be incomplete. And if you want to advance in the military system, there are mandatory go, no-go wickets. And in the Navy, the big jump is from E6 to E7, right? Yeah. Petty officer, first class, super heavy on the petty, to chief petty officer, still very heavy on the petty, is your LPO tour.
Yeah.
Without that, every year you fill out, you have a notebook in front of you, you literally create a record. And from my understanding, your record gets about 30 seconds in front of a rater. And the first look that it gets, they're looking for all of your mandatory leadership positions.
Yeah.
The most important one being for chief is LPO.
And for those listening, that's leading petty officer, which is kind of like a main supervisor of a platoon, but
like middle, I would say, like a middle manager. And then you get to chief, and you would certainly be, you're not in the C-suite. I would consider that more the O's, but you're definitely upper management at that point.
Yeah.
So my record got swept off the table 2 years in a row. And I had good evals. I had good awards. I had good experience administratively and in combat, and it just kept getting turned down. And I wasn't ready to be done in the military. And so then I became the LPO at second phase, but you have to hold the position for 2 years. So when I first got there, I had to wait till a guy finished.
Yeah.
A year after being there, he finished. So I actually was only LPO for like 6 months. So I basically got put on hold. I would have gotten put on hold for about 5 years because I didn't meet the criteria for having completed my LPO tour. Because apparently getting medevaced out to launch stool is unsatisfactory in nature.
Deal breaker.
I know. I shouldn't have jumped in front of that AK round. I don't know what I was thinking. But I was looking at my options, and I stumbled across a commissioning program that didn't require a college degree. And it was actually designed for the fleet. And in the history of the SEAL teams, it had only been used by E7s and E8s that either transitioned to the warrant program, because it's kind of the same package you put in. It's actually the identical package. I think you just check a box. One says warrant officer, one says LDO. An LDO, the difference between the two, an LDO is still considered a line officer. And I mean, really the only difference on that is that you wear a star on your sleeve, which means you can still maintain some semblance of tactical command, or you can be put into a tactical leadership position. A warrant officer no longer is supposed to serve in that capacity, although I'm sure there are examples of them needing to or having to be in an in extremis situation. So I put a package together. I had my commanding officer from development group write me an awesome recommendation. He ended up being the commanding officer of the Bin Laden raid. So he had a quite storied career. So it was a good recommendation. And from my team leader, he wrote me one, and the command master chief, and I put it in. And in a program that had historically only selected E7s and E8s, I got picked up first as an E6 over 28 other applicants. So I ended up becoming the first E6 selection in the LDO program in the history of spec war, of naval special warfare, not spec war in general.
Pretty sure there's a plaque for that.
It's a belt buckle. Yeah. It's pretty big.
God, welcome to Texas.
That's why I picked belt buckle. So I... October 1st of 2008, I went from being an E6 to an O1 with no additional training.
That's fucking great. That's classic textbook fucking
I
Navy.
literally went to the Navy Exchange across the street, and I said, hey, I need some officer uniforms. So they fitted me. Yeah. And I had them double and triple check to make sure that I was like putting the belt on the right way. They later sent me off to Newport, Rhode Island, to the most ridiculous, I guess, like Mustang University, which was completely designed for fleet individuals. I was there with another SEAL, and we were excused from 3/4 of the training. Like they were literally doing like Mo board type stuff, like radar. The guy was like, you guys are fine. See you on Thursday. Jesus. So really, I went from being an enlisted guy to an officer overnight. Yeah. Zero additional training, and then from there became the training officer at SEAL Team 3.
I got to tell you, that story in and of itself says a lot about both the military and the community. I mean, the advancement system is obviously broken. Yeah, I mean, because if you're going to pick me up, you're not paying attention. That's 12 shades of fucked up. That's fucking great.
Yeah. How do you know that the officer selection program is broken? Yeah. Because I got through.
Slipped through the cracks. Those are the weeds you're talking about. Real quick, if you could, just can you share the experience of when you were wounded?
Yeah, it wasn't pleasurable.
Yeah, no shit.
It was not. It
just a little pinch.
It was not an abnormal night. It wasn't atypical in any way. I was actually on I don't know what it would be called. If it would be called a cross-training deployment or it would be a currency deployment. But I got shot February 5th, 2005. And in that time period, or at that time, Development Group was heavily focused on Afghanistan. And the Army component of JSOC, just because I don't know what name they're currently using or they want to be used by, I'm just going to say the Army component of JSOC was heavily focused on Iraq. And the powers that be, sometimes they make very good decisions. And they realize that it's probably not good to have that much geographic specificity. So they wanted to take an element from each and train with and deploy with the other one. So I was actually on a deployment with Army guys, 5 other Blue guys, which is the JSOC term for development group, TF Blue. Army guys are TF Green. We were with them in Iraq, based out of the Green Zone, staying in one of Uday and Qusay's palaces. We would go bang it at night and then sit on inflatable flamingos in their pool.
Popping Viagra and drinking Johnny Walker Blue Label.
We would go the other way. But so I was working with those guys, and I get asked often on my thoughts about other special operations forces, and I have the same answer every time. I got nothing but respect. Yeah. Even internally in the SEAL teams, and specifically at JSOC, there were people like, fuck those Army guys, and I'm sure some of the Army guys were like, oh, fuck those Navy guys. I had great experiences with them. Yeah. Still maintain contact with some of the guys I was on deployment with. They became really good friends. At an operator level, awesome. They're no different. Yeah. They just wore a different uniform. Yeah. At the higher levels, the political levels, I'm sure because they're battling for budget and probably operational ability, or not ability, but operational mission sets, I could see there probably be some tension. But so we were banging hard with those guys. I mean, God, it was awesome. Every night we would go and the sun would go down and you'd get your game gear on and the target set would start lighting up and we would launch and we would roll it into another one. We had a full TF-160th package with Blackhawks and Little Birds and DAPs. We had the MHs and the AHs, which are the Magnum PI helicopters. You can sit on the skids, or they have rocket pods, and they literally aim with a freaking grease marker. The pilot gets up there, he's like, and if he misses, he's like, and moves it over. Those guys are badass. So, I mean, like 5 nights out of 7, I was on the skid of a Little Bird 50 feet over the top of Baghdad, just banging targets out. It was awesome.